Now, unions and commentators alike have raised concerns over the plans to unbundle the cash-strapped power utility. The use of independent power producers could impede Eskom's recalibration with devastating consequences for our economy, is how the argument go. Let's focus now on how and why all the social partners ought to be singing from the same hymn sheet. Minister, you basically threw down the gauntlet earlier and said you're either with us or you're not. We want to fix this situation. There's a lot of fear among unions that changing the way in which Eskom does work is going to lead to a jobs bloodbath, something that we cannot afford. Are you able to assure us that we're not going to have job losses on the scales that the unions are talking about?
I think the President is on record as saying that. And unions are important stakeholders. What at the same time we need to realize as a country is that we can't remain where Eskom has been over the last 50 or 20 years. The energy environment is changing. The type of grids that you have around the world, for example, have evolved. You get smart grids, you get more regional grids, etc. The way in which energy is produced is changing. So on the one hand, South Africa is the country that played a leading role in Paris in the climate change accord and made commitments on emissions. On the other hand, we say we don't want renewables. But I think far more important is to have a collective understanding of what does a just transition mean. And that was put into the global equation very deliberately, because coal-powered nations like ourselves, India, China, and others, said, don't expect us to switch off coal tomorrow morning. So coal still has a future. But we've also got to find money to invest in what they call clean coal technology. So that's the one side. The second is we've got to look after our communities and workers and also begin to retrain them for new technologies in the future. So today, you might be involved in a coal-powered station, but if you're 25 years old today, in 10 years' time, there's a very different set of technologies available. And our task is to invest, both as society and as government, in training you over the next few years so that you have a 30-year work future for yourself as well. So if we work together, see this as a common problem, and contribute to the solutions, I believe you can come out with exciting and innovative outcomes that gives everybody the assurances that they require. But the key is we need to secure Eskom, we need to consider this a national interest matter, and a matter on which we need to collaborate and compromise and go forward.
What was interesting was, Eskom got to 40,000 megawatts without using a cent of taxpayers' money. It issued bonds and it financed itself. I don't know quite what it was that caused it then to tip into the debt that it did. But one of the things would have been a decision by the then ANC government not to build power stations, or not to allow Eskom to build power stations in the late 90s. So Medupi and Kusile were late decisions, and these were power stations that were built in a hurry. And that was either a Mandela government decision or first Mbeki government decision. But what was worse was the ANC's own involvement in the contracts for Medupi and Kusile, because that must have complicated or narrowed the kind of options for proper tendering, because Chancellor House, an ANC funding body, became a partner of Hitachi, which completely messed up the boilers for Medupi. That's why Medupi doesn't work and probably never will work properly. Does the ANC understand its role in this mess and its responsibility for it?
I don't know whether the partnership has a causal relationship with the design.
But Hitachi got the tender because it was an ANC partner. That's why it became an ANC partner.
Well, I think those are matters we need to look into and put the facts before the public. And whoever needs to take accountability, in my view, must take accountability, because all the matters that we are dealing with stand above political parties or narrow interests at the end of the day. But we have now, a 200 to 300 billion rand investment in Medupi and Kusile. We've also owed it to South Africans to see what is it that we can do to salvage that and make this thing work at the end of the day. And that's why we need the wisdom of
sure.
both young engineers and older engineers.
Talking about wisdom, Minister, let's take a listen to a very distrustful union that historically has been an ally of an ANC-led government. They're simply saying that they don't know whether they can trust you. Let's take a listen to what NUM has to say.
We believe that the ANC is continuing lying to us, saying that this unbundling is not going to result in job losses. Yet the people who want to put money into Eskom say, if you don't reduce your workforce, we don't give you money. And the ANC knows that, and they are hiding it from us. We are taken for a ride here, and we cannot tolerate that. Our members are angry.
Sorry, Karima, surely that he's misreading what the government is being told by people like the World Bank or funders. I mean, I don't know of any funders, maybe you do, Minister, who've said, unless you reduce the workforce, we won't give you any funding.
No, the key issue here is that if you take 2018 figures, the revenue of 177 billion rands doesn't match the expenditure, which is close to 200 billion rands. Now, no household or small business or large business or government enterprise can run on an imbalance between revenue, rather revenue here, and expenses here. So that's the first issue. The second is what gives rise to these increases in costs. Firstly, it's the way coal has been purchased in the recent past. And even on Friday, when I was meeting the coal miners, there's talk of so-called middlemen and middlewomen. There's talk of manipulation of the quality of coal. There's talk of manipulation of the recipients of coal at power stations. We have a much better insight into where some of the fault lines are. So coal purchases is one issue. In 1978, coal purchases cost us 54 billion rands. It's actually more than 5 times more than what it was costing us 10 years ago. Wow. Right? So that's coal. Then you have the maintenance issues, the quality of maintenance, the cost of maintenance, and again, there's a view that if you look into that carefully, there's a set of issues there. The third is obviously the people cost. Management tiers have grown, numbers have grown. One can't still figure out what the benefit package is of some of the senior people in Eskom. But all that has to be unpacked. And all those facts are going to be put on the table.
Minister, this facts that's going to be put on the table. I mean, I was listening to NUM now, and my view on NUM is that they were in a very real way complicit to the Gupta capture. The Guptas paid, for example, for the NUM conference. There was a time when the Guptas wanted to buy the Workers' Bank. NUM workers came to me personally. I broke the story that they were going to try and sell the bank to the Guptas. The point, though, is that if you do not have trust amongst the social partners, if NUM feels as angry as that, and they are your historical partners, what's still about unions like NUMSA that has ideological problems of the ANC? What kind of approach do you need, do you require to actually get all of these people into the same room and get them to generally agree on a way forward and what is needed?
Put the national interest first. Put Eskom and its future first. Put forward your solutions to each of the problems we have identified. If you're not selling any more electricity today than 10 years ago, how do you run an effective business? Right? And at the same time, your tariff costs have gone up more than 4 times, or your selling price. Now, so you have all these disjunctures. Let's put the facts on the table. Let's debate the facts, and then ask ourselves, where do we want to go? If there are underlying motivations for different entities taking different stances, then I think the South African public has another challenge, which we faced in 2017, 2016. There's another set of dots to connect, right? Where is this orchestration of opposition to unbundling or Eskom or saying negative things about the government or our efforts to fix it actually coming from? Because there is orchestration. You hear the same things from a diverse set of forces, and somebody's got to connect those dots.
One of
the
things that you hear is that President Cyril Ramaphosa is married to Patrice Motsepe's sister. Yes. That Jeff Radebe, the Minister of Energy, is also married to Patrice Motsepe's sister. That Patrice Motsepe is now the biggest single investor, South African investor, in renewable energy. Yes. They join those dots and come up with a conspiracy.
Yes.
And are they wrong? And it even goes as far as NL. The people that NL is somehow unspokenly a partner of Motsepe. Hence, you turn to NL to come and fix the cold generator.
Let me make it absolutely clear. We're not interested in all of either the conspiracies or all those connections of one kind or another. We're there to do a serious piece of work, and that work is, as far as I'm concerned, in the national interest.
When the leader of the NUM says our members are angry, it's because they've been told that story and they believe it.
I know. So we're living in the age of fake news. What do you expect?
Yeah, but
we can't ask Donald Trump for solutions to our problems, but certainly we have people here who are emulating what is going on in the U.S.
But if we talk about the war of messaging and who believes who, the reality, of course, is that ANC leaders close to lucrative deals have benefited in a lot of industries. And so that is a reality that the African National Congress-led government cannot actually ignore. What is the guarantees, Minister, that you're giving as someone who needs to turn this place around, that whoever is given a contract here, whoever is given a piece of work to do is going to do it because they're the best, they come in on target, they can deliver on budget, and they have a track record, not because they are connected to politician X or politician B?
You know, I don't give the contracts, but Eskom does. So our job is to make sure we have the right systems of governance, we have the appropriate transparency as far as the tendering processes are concerned, and there's a lot more that can be done in that regard. Let's admit that right now, because the less the spotlight on the tendering process, the more the room for malfeasance of one kind or another. Yeah. So let's open up those things, put them on the websites, let everybody understand what it is that is actually going on in respect of which tender. And we need a new business culture in South Africa, where it's not your connections that matter, it's your competence that matter. And finally, the ANC has committed itself at Nazareth to renewing itself in terms of its ethics, in terms of its integrity, and the way it actually does things as well. Well, that's the test for all of us in the ANC. Are we capable of meeting the challenge of renewal that we committed ourselves to and committed to our country as well? But right now, we'll have to clean up all of that stuff, earn the confidence of everyone, and the key is still, how do we work together? How do we solve this problem together? Stop the saboteurs or whoever they are, in inverted commas, from undermining this country, its economy, the jobs of this country. Damaging Eskom is damaging jobs. Damaging Eskom is damaging small businesses at the end of the day. And affecting households of all kinds, poor and not so poor as well.
Minister, you've been very vocal on the fact that there must be accountability for those who have done wrong. So far, not a single individual has been arrested, either for awarding a contract illegally, or for taking a gift, or for making a bad engineering decision. There has been absolutely no sense that those who essentially took one of our great institutions and reduced it to rubble is being held accountable. That obviously dents the confidence of the public in the government. What needs to happen to people like Lynn Brown, who assured us that the finances of Eskom was fine, to Anoj Singh, who took bribes and who simply lied, to Brian Molefe? What needs to happen to those people, and how soon do they need to be acted on for the South African public to have confidence in the government that it can actually do what it wants to do over the time period that it set itself?
Well, I think we all now know that it wasn't just Eskom that was captured. It was also law enforcement agencies that were captured. We also know, despite the current blast of narratives that you have on Twitter and everywhere else, that who the key culprits were. in this particular regard as well. There might be some unknown ones, but the known ones are a legend in the country now. We know that there is a process of renewing and rebuilding state institutions. In case we forget, it can take 10 to 20 years to build an institution. It takes a few months to destroy it, and we've got lots of evidence around us of that, whether it's the Revenue Service or anything else that we are looking at, including the NPA, where false charges are brought and have been brought against all sorts of people in the past. There's no shortage of forensic reports. There's no shortage of SIU reports. There's no shortage of charges that have been laid with the Hawks and others. It's time now for them to act. And I think it's not just government. It's the law enforcement agencies that must come to the party now and do what is their job. Our job is a slightly different one. Find the problem. If we think there's a excuse me, act of criminality, report that. Nor is it the president's job, by the way. The Constitution prevents him from also interfering.
Yes.
And we often forget that.
Yeah.
His job is to ensure that in terms of the Constitution, these are vibrant institutions, independent, ethical, and there to serve the national interest at the end of the day. There are others who have other intentions as far as these things are concerned. So we actually have an interesting contest going on in South Africa between those who want to build a solid future for future generations and for the economy and for every single person in this country. And on the other side are a group of people who are only interested in themselves for one reason or another.
Minister, thank you very much for your time. Of course, we know that you're very, very busy. We will be checking in with you regularly, and of course, also your board minister, Pravin Gordhan, speaking to us there about government's plans to turn around the ailing power utility Eskom. After the break, we'll dissect the weekend newspapers in just a moment. Do stay with us.